Something.
Yep, just click
Okay.
OK.
Okay, we are off to the races. So, Ike, man, I appreciate you making some time today for a chat.
Um, as I said, it's an honor and a privilege to meet you in air quotes.
Yeah, and good to
Um,
meet you. Good to meet you as well. Trust me, the privilege is all on this side of the Zoom call. But um, I'm just outside of Seattle, Washington. Where are you located?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh,
So
okay.
the swampy coast.
I was gonna say, how's the humidity these days?
It's gotten less bad, but I think I saw 94 on the dash. And yeah, the humidity, like it's lower. It's maybe 60 or 70%, not like 80 or 90. But
That's man.
it's just swampy. I mean, everywhere you live has somewhere that something about it that is
Hmm.
less than ideal. And we have to deal with a little bit of humidity and some heat. Uh, but I came from Rochester, New York, up on Lake Ontario, so
Mm.
I'm not shoveling snow 8 months of the year anymore.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, we've had living up there, we had snow on Mother's Day.
I understand. I was born and raised in Massachusetts. I lived there about
Yes.
21 years, and so I grew up shoveling snow, and I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
miss. And I lived for a few years in Denver, Colorado as well. So I came
Yeah.
back for a short period of time. So correct me if I'm wrong. You're married with three kids,
Yep.
and I try to do the math on your. How old are you now, and how old's your youngest child?
58.
You're
I
58.
am, and my youngest turns 13 in October.
Okay.
So, yes, and I'm trying to take the stigma out of the term. I knocked my wife up at 45.
So, okay, 58 with a 12-year-old. I'm trying to do the math because right now our kids are
Yeah,
15, 13, and my daughter's 4. I'm
yeah, you're
50.
right there, dude.
Yep. So when I'm 58, my daughter will be 12. Is exactly where you are. So
Yep.
I know what it's like to have a 4-year-old, being 50. What's it like having a 12-year-old at 58?
Uh, Mercifully, the older two kind of broke me in for dealing with the younger one. Um, so there's not much he could throw at us that's gonna, you know, make my life crazy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a really good kid. So he's not, super demanding one way or the other about things. But yes, when he was Lane's age, one day he wanted me to do something, and I'm like, Luke, I don't have any more energy. And he goes, Here, Dad, have some of mine.
Perfect. Yes, exactly. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. My daughter said something the other day, which was just, I can't remember what it was, but she said something along the lines where she was like, before me, your life was boring, and now it's not.
Yep.
And I was like, bingo, well said. We could word it in other ways, but the sentiment is
Yeah.
the same. But I guess my question is too, like, are there things where you show up to particular school events or whatnot, and you're looking around at the parents and they're all, 15 to 20 years younger?
Well, my wife and I are the same age, um, but she's not a starving hair farmer, so she looks much better than I do. So everyone naturally assumes that she's much younger than I am. So yeah, you show up and people are like, "Oh, and then they're all, yeah, you're like, "Well, this is our last one and this is your first one, so we're in different phases of our lives."
Hmm.
Um,
I'll tell you
but
what,
yeah,
though, I can't speak for you. But having, a child later in life, I didn't really need any extra, I don't know, motivation or focus as to like why I'm going to try to eat healthy and why I'm going to try to like keep moving through a full range of motion and why I'm going to,
yeah,
strength training and getting after it. But if I did need any extra motivation, all I need to do is like do the math for it. I'm like, okay, like this little person needs me around and they need
Hmm.
to be as capable as possible because I don't know what the future holds. So
Yeah.
I'm to, get a smaller slice of cake than I originally would have cut for myself, and let's get in the garage and get after it.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely. And he's like, "Are you even going to be alive when I graduate high school?" I'm like, "Dude, it's in like 6 years. Leave me
Oh,
alone."
oh, you gotta love just the straight
Yeah.
question. I
Yeah.
mean, we were in the grocery store the other day, and who knows? Every parent thinks they're doing it right. I'm sure we're doing some things great. I'm sure we're just totally punting some things into the stands, and trying to explain to my daughter, and our other two kids are boys, so especially we don't want to develop any like food issues with a young girl. But then they see us eat and work out, so we're trying to tell her like, treats are wonderful, they're delicious, but like, if you eat too many, you can get unhealthy, you could get sick, you get too heavy. These foods are good for you. This is like she knows what like protein is and
Yeah.
stuff, like so it's cool. Or she's like, this is good for my muscles. I'm like, yes, this is good for your muscles. And we were in the grocery store yesterday or the day before. Must be yesterday, it was on the weekend. Buying some like chicken to like grill up for the week to like meal prep. And there was just, a very heavy person in the aisle next to us. And I'm just going around looking at stuff, and she's sitting there in the cart. And out of nowhere, she just goes, "Daddy, he eats too many treats." And that's just like, and locked eyes
No
with me.
filter.
Clearly, she said it enough for everybody within a 20-yard radius to hear. And I was just like, well, treats are really good, aren't they? And she's like, "Yep." And we just, and I think, he knew, he's like,
Oops.
what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
So it's good, it keeps you on your toes. Uh,
Hmm.
one of the things I think which caught my interest with you initially, and I love doing these Linchpin member interviews. They're one of the most fun things that I get to do each week. Because we've got everybody in our community from school teachers to physicians to law enforcement to we've got full-time farmers, and everything
Hmm.
in between. And I
That's a
remember
hard
you,
job.
oh my goodness. And I remember you saying that you were an investor, because every now and then somebody will throw out a question like, "Hey, what does everybody do for a living?" It's always fascinating to hear all that. And that
Yeah.
was even with as many years I've been doing that, that was the first time somebody had written that down as to what they do. And so
Oh,
that instantly was curious to me. And I
yeah.
figured the conversation is to
Sure.
that's not what most people respond when they ask, "Hey, what are you doing these days?" And so what does it mean to be an investor? What does your day look like? How do you explain it to other folks?
Um, so there's two different things. There's investing and there's day trading.
Mm,
So investing, my time horizon is 5, 10, 15, 20 years. When you're day trading, I want to buy stuff and be able to sleep at night. I don't want to like, you know, do a trade and then lose sleep because you don't know, there's so many variables that can go into it where you can get in trouble. So
hmm
I kind of follow Warren Buffett's idea of if you can't buy it and sleep at night, you shouldn't own it.
hmm
Um, and I got into it because when uh, my dad died when I was 19, and I got some money, not a ton of money, but enough to like live and like be able to do things. And so I started investing it. Um, but
That
then
in
you
and of
get,
itself is unique. I feel like most 19-year-olds I know would have just blown it, at Atlantic City or something.
well, I've got a history degree, and history teachers aren't going to make a ton of money.
Fair, fair.
Um, so I started investing. I mean, some of it was already invested, but I started investing more, and you mercifully when you're in your 20s, you can learn hard lessons, and it's not a big deal. But the more I don't really I guess because I've always done it, and I've done other jobs as well because I buy things that, like, for instance, I've owned Apple since 2007.
Mm.
there's no reason to sell it. I've got my iPhone. We're talking on an iMac.
Right,
You
right.
know, why? Um, but you know, because you don't. All right, kind of
With
like
something, let me ask you a question with something
yeah.
like Apple. With something like Apple, and I know just enough to be dangerous.
Okay.
Um, do you follow the stock or the company or whatnot with any sort of interest in their quarterly earnings statements or whatnot? Or you're like, you know what, they seem to have been peaked out. Other people are catching them in technology. I don't think they got much more in the tank.
Um,
I think I've got the best years out of them. You know what? Maybe I can cash out and find a faster horse. Or you go, no, this we're just going to just hold it and we're going to hold it.
uh, well, all right. Before I say more, I'm not a certified financial planner.
Nor am I.
Yeah, we're two guys
You guys
having some
talking on the
coffee
internet.
and drinking.
Yes,
It's like
this is
when
not
somebody,
financial advice.
when somebody in an AMA says, "Hey, my shoulder hurts. What should I do?"
100%. Yep.
Um, so when you're looking at CrossFit, you're talking about GPP. You know, we want to be the best at everything
Mm-hmm.
ish. Um, so when I look at investing, I want to be balanced across everything. Um, One of the ways you do that is like, so yes, because I've owned Apple for so long and it's grown so much, you try not to let any one thing that you have be over a certain percentage of your holdings. Now, whether this is
Mm-hmm.
mutual funds or individual stocks or whatever, you try to keep everything balanced. That way, you don't end up with the tail wagging the dog,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't end up with like today trying to do front squats and you've got 245s on one side of the barbell and 225s on the other side of the barbell.
Right.
It's going to be lopsided and really hard to do. So you take some profits and you reallocate them other places. Um, just like again, picking on Buffett, people made a big deal that Warren Buffett sold off some of his Apple holdings 6 months or a year ago. He still has like billions of dollars in Apple,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't
Just took some
have.
off the top.
Yeah, it's now you're playing with the house's money,
Mm.
and you've put the money somewhere else.
And if you, let's say that you are at that point with a particular investment that maybe has reached maturity or you don't think it's
Yeah.
going to go too much, so you're going to take some off the top, whatever that happens to be. Um, do you do any sort of analysis to keep your eyes on upcoming opportunities, or does it just go back into the S&P 500 or something?
Um, yes to both.
Okay.
I mean, some of it's going to go like the best thing that anybody can do that's watching this um, is there's companies out there, and I'll name one. I have no affiliation with it, but Vanguard makes great no load, so cheap to own S&P 500 mutual funds and a whole bunch of other funds. But you pick something like the S&P 500 because it's the 500 biggest companies in America. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it might be different, for our friends in France, it's the CAC 40, the CAC 40, or
Okay.
in England, it's the FTSE 100. There's various indexes all over. You can get an index fund depending on where you live, and I'm sure in another country you can still buy an S&P 500 fund. But that gives you the broadest range to buy into the most to get the most benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then, yeah, you'd look at stuff and you'd say, like, well, you know, this company looks good. Let's put a little bit of money in that, see how it works. This company looks good. Let's put a little money in that, see how it works.
Now, where are you
Um,
finding those? Because would it be safe to say with something like the S&P 500, like you are getting that stability or confidence or safe harbor for your money, generally speaking? There are
yeah,
good, bad years, good quarters, bad quarters, but generally speaking, with a whatever it happens to be on average, a consistent 8 to 12% or whatever it happens to go up
yeah,
each year, but so that lack of volatility, you know, is nice,
yeah,
but then you get that just that 8 to 10%, but you need a generally longer time horizon. You don't want to be getting into that at 52 years old at, whatever it happens to be. Is that generally the case, or, that obviously they say that, time in the market beats trying to time the market, so
yes,
the
yeah.
earlier that you can get in.
You know, trying to time the market is like trying to catch a falling knife.
Mm,
I
no good.
wouldn't do it.
Right. Yeah, no good. Okay.
But I like, yeah, I like that amount of diversity. But then, yes, um, finding other companies, and some of it can just be, everyday names that we all use. I mean, Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
um, Amazon, pick your favorite banking stock, pick your favorite whatever. I mean, there's a zillion different companies out there, and you can, if you identify something, there's a lot of places on the web where you can start to like look things up and research them, and then you can look at some of their filings and see if they appeal to you.
I've got a
Um,
genuine question for you that I don't know the answer to. I don't have a dog in the fight, and maybe I'm wrong with this. But I've heard that with something like the S&P 500, that the top like seven or eight companies, whatever there's the Mag 7 or whatever, drive like
yeah.
85% of the return in the S&P 500. Would it make any sense at all, instead of investing 5 grand a year into the S&P 500, to take that 5 grand and just chop it up into seven pieces for those top seven that seem to drive the results? Or is that stupid and crazy and weird?
Well, so if you look at it as a pie, maybe half your money is in, an S&P 500 mutual fund, and maybe a quarter is divided up among those seven stocks.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha. Right.
Something like that. So that, because when the annoying thing is, like, you bought your diversification, but then if you look at some of the mutual funds, their largest holdings could be, 30% in Apple, because we're picking on Apple.
Right.
So it does help. Um, but you can have something, like, I know it's annoying to you and me too, because we try to stay fit and healthy, but the companies that did the GLP-1 stocks, they went through the roof.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, I had some Eli Lilly because it was a safe, boring pharmaceutical stock that paid a good dividend. All of a sudden, 2 years ago, it was almost $1,000. You're
Mm,
like, okay, that's great. But now I think it's like 600 and something today. So, you're going to get wild swings.
right.
And then that can throw off, you know, when the days are good for those seven, your portfolio looks excellent.
Right.
But then if, something goes wrong, say the CEO gets caught at a Coldplay concert,
Right.
you know,
Oh my goodness. Yes.
they're, and the stock tanks. We I mean, overall, in general, I think the Mag 7, or a lot of the companies, in the S&P 500, 10, 15 years from now, they're going to be worth more than they are now.
Hmm.
Um, so, I mean, that's why I look longer term.
Isn't that the interesting thing too, like you said about the Coldplay concert, about how much there's a difference between like short-term
Yeah.
noise that
Yes.
that creates things day to day versus like
Yeah.
are the fundamentals of the company solid long term? You
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
something exciting happened on Twitter X today and everyone
Yeah.
freaked out, but
Yeah.
is the company's cash reserves, is there product,
Yeah.
is there research and development, is there a business like that
Yeah.
didn't change because of
No,
the concert. You know
no,
what I
no,
mean?
no,
And so
no.
like sometimes I guess if you're
CEO's
paying
an
attention to
idiot,
those
but
things, you can buy the dip because you're like, this
yes.
company's good. The news cycle moves fast. No one's going to remember this in two
Yeah.
months.
No, not at all. But yeah, so that's why I try not to trade in and out of things. If all of a sudden some something that has no bearing on the stock happens and everybody freaks out and sells,
Hmm.
you're like, yeah, but nothing has changed. So
Right,
just
right.
just stay in it. Um,
I think it was another Warren Buffett actually, maybe I'm misattributing it to him, but there's probably worse people to attribute things to. So I thought he equated the stock market and that day-to-day nonsense of like if you were selling your home and nothing about
mhm,
your home has changed, but every day a crowd gathered in front of your home and just shouted different prices at it every single saw. You're like, well, it's
yeah,
why are you shouting 50 grand less today? What happened? Like, and then tomorrow it's
yeah,
high. You're like, what happened? Like, but
yeah,
over the course of the year, it averages out.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a wild, wild industry.
Um, Investor psychology, I think, is a field that would probably prove very interesting.
Mm,
Because you do get a lot of people that just knee jerk reactions and just be like, oh my god, look, we can't, oh it's horrible.
hmm.
I A good friend of mine who worked his whole life and then retired, and they moved down here. And when you move anywhere and you get a new house, you just kind of hemorrhaging money for a couple months, and he's freaking out. And then there was some, I think it was like a short covering thing that happened in Japan because the yen and the dollar inverted, or who knows, it was crazy. But he's freaking out. I'm like, well, dude, it's short-term noise. It will be fine. Oh my god.
Hmm.
No, you don't need to do a thing. Just calm down, you know?
Yeah, just hold.
Nothing else changed. This is just because some hedge fund guys like got caught in a squeeze and they need to liquidate some positions to pay their to pay for, a bet that went wrong.
Man, that's all the stuff. Like I said, I know just enough to be dangerous that I don't know. I need to find a good book or a good something because I know there's so much more financial complexity out there that drives markets, at least short term, that I'm not
Mhm.
saying I want to play with, but I would like out of curiosity to have a more interesting understanding from longs to shorts to squeezes to synthetic longs that people take to covered calls. So I'm like, what are you guys doing out there? Like to
Exactly,
manipulate things
exactly. Some
like
of it's just it's kind of like you're talking to a degenerate gambler, not an investor.
right.
And they're more than happy to tell you about all the times they went to the casino and won big, but they don't tell you anything about when they lost money.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's just it's a wild, it's just one of those things where you just don't
I
learn about
like
any of this
Michael
stuff in
Lewis's books
school.
for that.
Who is this?
Michael Lewis,
Oh,
he
okay.
wrote The Big Short and Liar's Poker,
Gotcha. Okay.
um, Moneyball, although that's about baseball. But The Big Short, Liar's Poker, and he had another one about the high frequency trading guys called Flash Boys.
Hmm.
Um, Great reads, short, easy. Michael Lewis writes an easy to read book.
Gotcha. Okay.
Don't read his thing about Sam Bankman Fried. It's just annoying.
Okay. All right. I'll shelf that one.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that you mentioned, we were going back and forth setting up this interview, was you mentioned, like you said, the good mutual fund. Then you also mentioned the Roth IRA as one of your
Yeah.
other like,
It's, and here's where you really do need to consult a financial planner and a tax advisor, because even if you make more than above the limit, you can still fund a Roth IRA.
mm-hmm,
So there's two different types of IRAs in America. A traditional IRA, you're putting in money that isn't taxed when you put it in, but when you take it out, you do pay taxes on it.
mm-hmm,
A Roth IRA lets you put in money you've paid taxes on, and then it gets to grow tax free for 10, 20, 30 years. and when you take it out, you don't pay taxes on it. And I know everyone thinks,
Wonderful.
yes. So if you put money into as much money every year as you can into a Roth, into an S&P 500 mutual fund, or if you can put, if you put stock, if you buy individual stock, great. But it just, we know what the tax rates are now. We don't know what the tax rates are going to be in the future.
Hmm.
And so it definitely just it just makes sense because, again, picking on the friend who was freaking out over the Japanese market fluctuations and their impact in the US, I don't think they have a Roth. I think they have a traditional IRA.
Mm.
And all this stuff they're having to, they're just, now he's paying more taxes, and it's so annoying. And it just, I think Trey Long is a CPA. He can chime in, but
Right.
it just makes a lot of sense. And if that vehicle's out there and you're not utilizing it as part of your retirement, you know please do it. Just,
Yeah,
you hate to see people, and like you said, we've got people for do all sorts of very hard jobs in Linchpin. I hate to see people get like so far in their life and then get screwed in the end over taxes, and not having things invested in a good, safe way to maximize it for themselves because they've worked so hard all their life.
death and taxes, right?
Honestly.
I mean, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. The
Yep.
so you've got also one of the things which I found interesting about you as well is you're passionate about racing cars. Tell me a bit about that.
um so always been a car guy. um Read Road and Track and Car and Driver magazines, back in the 80s. Just loved cars. Um, and loved racing too. And in 1989, I got as a gift a 2-day Skip Barber high performance driving school.
I know that name.
Yeah, well, Skip Barber was a national thing. It was started by the fellow that used to own Lime Rock Park in Connecticut, and at the time they were partnered with BMW. So for
Mm.
2 days, you get to go beat up a BMW with an instructor in the car with you telling you what to do, and it's just a hoot. Um, but because you're beating up somebody else's equipment, it costs a lot.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, at the time they were a couple of grand. Now they're, 5 or 6. Um, but car clubs also rent racetracks and do driving schools. So it only costs you a few $100s. Well, back then it was a few $100s. Now it's like $500 or $600. But you got to bring your own car and you
Mm.
drive it. And I started, the car club I belonged to had their national convention at Watkins Glen International, up in Western New York in the Finger Lakes. And for those of you who don't know, the Glen was the home of Formula One racing in the States from the mid 60s to the late 70s. Um,
Okay.
and so it's a really cool bucket list 3.5 mile long road course that goes uphill and downhill and turns left and turns right. And you know, it it's a little crass, but it's the most fun you can have in a car with your clothes on.
That's awesome.
Um, and so I started doing driver schools, and then after in '94, I got asked to become an instructor because you
Oh, that's
progress
cool.
at a driver school. You progress from, they divide people up by ability level. So you've got a novice run group, an intermediate run group, a high intermediate run group, and an advanced run group. And I got asked to be an instructor. And the great thing back then was, when you got asked to be an instructor, you no longer had to pay
Oh, yeah. There you
because
go.
because you're paying with your
Now we're
time in the
talking.
in the passenger seat. Now, the mercifully, when I started, um, a high performance horse car had 300 horsepower
Mm.
and 16, maybe 17-inch wheels, and the tires were kind of sticky, but they weren't great. Um, Nowadays, I don't know what you guys have, but probably, a Honda Accord has over 300 horsepower now,
Yeah, right, right.
and you've got, the cars are just so much insanely quicker. So, I guess kind of like when you got in early into CrossFit, it was it was a much smaller ecosystem, and like you
Hmm.
said, when you were doing the level one seminars, they were always rewriting the material and the curricula every weekend, and you were learning. So mercifully back then, I'm learning while I'm teaching. The only challenge back then is there were 4 student run groups, and you most likely had a student in 3 of the 4. So you're
Gotcha.
on track in the passenger seat with a helmet on and helmet to helmet communicators for like an hour and a half at a time. So that gets tiring, but it was a lot of fun. I still do it, not as much as I used to. I had a guy, I got involved with the Ferrari Club, and I had a guy who was a student who was an investment banker on Wall Street, and this is in the dot-com boom. And he had a client that wanted to see Ferrari does a one make or a one model race spec race series. So it's generally their V8 car, and everybody races an identical car. And so he had a client that wanted to see their company name on a bunch of these. So I got to go racing in that series in '98. I did 4 races out of 10. Had a lot of fun. The funnest part about it, though, was we're at Lime Rock in Connecticut again, and they would have celebrity drivers. Well, me and this buddy of mine were standing outside the hotel, and we hear this ungodly noise coming down the road. And we're like, what the heck is that? Just, think of the loudest car you can. And in rolls this Volvo station wagon that's making the noise. And we're like,
Okay.
what the heck? The door opens. It's Paul Newman.
Oh, no kidding.
He's the celebrity race driver for the weekend.
That's pretty cool.
And so I'm like, Paul, what's under the hood? He says, what's supercharged 302 Ford engine? So he had some guy,
That's amazing.
him and David Letterman had this guy up in Vermont build identical Volvo wagons that had a supercharged 302
That's
in a Volvo.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That's good. Never see it coming at the stoplight. You
no,
hear it.
no. You'd hear it, but it would just, yeah. And it was a hoot because he just, I mean, I don't know, it would be like working out with a really top level games athlete. Like I think you
Hmm.
said the one time you were doing a running workout with
Sam
Sam
Briggs.
Briggs,
Yeah,
and you
right.
you think you're pedaling, and she's having a normal conversation with you, like
100%.
no, and that was racing against Paul Newman.
Oh,
He
that's
just
cool.
he just I had a guy hit me on the first lap and like bent my steering rack, so I didn't finish the first race. And he had an alternator failure, and he didn't finish the first race. So we start the second race the next morning. I'm 28th, he's 27th. My mechanic says, "Here's your strategy for the race. Follow Paul." We sliced our way through the field. I think I made it up to like eighth.
No kidding.
Yeah. But
Wow.
he was just whoosh, whoosh.
He was a
He would
beast,
get on
huh?
someone and just hound them until they'd screw up, and we'd get by. It was amazing.
Oh man,
Um,
that's
Nicest
very,
guy in the
very cool.
world. He talk racing to you all day long. Don't mention a movie, but he'd talk racing to you all day long.
That's pretty
But
awesome.
yeah, so I got to do that. It was fun. I still love to instruct for the same reason you do this. It's that aha moment for people
Mm,
when you're trying to get them to process something, and the light comes on, and you're like, yes, we did that together, awesome job. So yeah,
that's that's
I'm
pretty
actually,
cool.
yeah.
That might actually be a good lead in. You talk about, why do this? There's a whole lot of different places that you could go for your fitness. I guess kind of in closing a little bit, maybe just ask you, why did you choose to make Linchpin your home?
um I had the original gym I started at in 2011 just followed main site programming. One workout a day, keep it simple. um Moved to another gym after a little turnover there, and they were initially doing strength and metcon, and it was all right, because the fellow was on the CrossFit gymnastics seminar staff, and so he made sure everything was good. But then it then a bunch of the coaches were like, we'd like to do more coaching and less cat herding,
Mm,
and they switched back to just one workout a day. um, and I loved that gym, wouldn't have left that gym, but we moved down here. Um, Down here, everyone wants to do strength and metcon.
gotcha.
Um, and it just I was at the gym I was at before joining you guys, and we were doing a workout for Fittest of the Coast, which is a semi decent south. It used to be just a southeast competition, but
Okay.
then it's grown. Um, and it was a descending ladder of squat, of cleans, and box jumps. And here's the great thing that you have to look forward to: once you get to like 55, the weights go down.
Right. Right. Right.
So I had like the last thing I had to do was 5 cleans at 185 pounds,
Okay.
and I got there really quick. Like, I was 15 cleans at 135, 10 cleans at 155, and then 5 at 185. And I got to 185, and I pulled the first two, and they were great. And I saw the clock, and I was like 4.5 minutes in, and I'm like, hell yeah. And I rushed the setup, pulled, right knee went pop, down I
Mm,
went, ACL, meniscus, a hot mess. So around then, I had discovered, your Varied Not Random podcast with Boz, and I just loved it. Especially what really got me hooked was because I I went and got my L1 in 2012 or 2013, and the thing that always intrigued me was programming.
oh, okay.
And you know, with most anybody, when you leave an L1, you maybe you go in and you think I know a lot, but then you leave the L1, you're like, I don't know a damn thing.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Um, and that was especially true with programming. And in the DNR, you had that two-parter where you're talking about
Right.
your ebook and programming, and I was like, that sounds really cool. And then I went on your website and I got the ebook, and then I'm like, "Ooh, what's this private track?"
That's cool.
Um,
Good.
and long story short, when I'm rehabbing the knee, I was thinking going back to the other gym, and I'm trying to follow their programming, but it was just too complicated, and just too too abusive, and I was just like, I'm not feeling it. So I gave Linchpin a try, and I'm like, oh, this is like 2011 again.
Oh, that's cool.
It's just and quite honestly, I used to, when I always use BTWB to log my workouts, but I'd always be, level 50, level 50, level 50. Now I'm getting level 60s, level 70s, level 80s. So I'm like,
Good for you, man.
hey,
That's legit.
as I said before we clicked on, I've had a couple of times when I'm in the gym, and some young person's like, boy, I hope I can still do it when I'm your age. So,
That's the goal right there.
to be hitting some things when you're in, in your late 50s, early 60s, it just
100%.
feels good. Yeah.
That's 100%. I mean, that's
So,
well, that's cool,
yeah.
man. It's that's why we do this. And like I said,
Yeah.
I'm consistently just humbled by the Linchpin members. Fun to be around. It's amazing to hear everybody's stories, and yours is very unique and interesting. And I genuinely appreciate you sharing a bit of it today with us.
Yeah, no worries. It was fun.
Yeah,
Great
100%.
talking to you and
You,
happy birthday.
thank you, sir. If you find yourself in the greater Seattle area, hit me up, shoot me an email.
All right. Yeah, and if you want to come down to the swampy weather, I'll tell
Right.
you one thing, you can't get a bad meal in Charleston. We moved down here, I gained 10 pounds.
Oh,
I've gotten it off now, but you know,
I
it's
would I would gladly put on a couple during the trip, I'll tell you that much.
yeah,
I would gladly do it, but yeah. Yeah, thanks, Ike. I appreciate it, brother.
no worries. Appreciate it. Nice
Yeah,
talking
have
to you,
yourself a
Pat.
good day.
Have a great day.